Hey folks, Phil from the future here. I recommend round 3 versus Show and Tell. It is a very interesting match. Something exciting happens, and a bunch of very interesting micro decisions happen. It is a long game, but I think it's really good. Hello, folks. Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU, here for another Legacy video. I am in the midst of packing up to move into a house. Things are kind of crazy on my end, but we're going to try to keep the content machine churning and hopefully not miss any or too many videos. Today, we're going to be playing with Damien's Mono Black deck list. And this is sort of an update of a deck that I played maybe a month ago. The general idea was to try to use Fiend Artisan to open up some toolbox lines to a mono black deck that normally doesn't have too much of that. You can play the colorless Urza Saga and open up some lines, but a lot of times, despite tutoring being in black's color identity, black doesn't get a lot of selection in Legacy. So kind of our combo is Bitterblossom, which gives us a creature token every turn, and then we can dump a bunch of mana into Fiend Artisan and turn those tokens into maybe the initiative, maybe a critical hate bear, maybe a Sheoldred, which is just, mean, or we can even wipe some creatures or attempt to get an opposition agent, Maralen of the Mornsong lock. And how that works is opposition agent lets you control the opponents while they're searching, and Maralen denies a draw step and forces the player to search. So that is essentially a self-contained win condition right there. Your opponent doesn't get any more cards ever. You get their cards, and you also lightning bolt them for 3 a turn. Assuming you're at the higher life total, you're going to win that race, and we have Shadow Spear for some lifelink to ensure that that will indeed happen. The main deck here otherwise is not particularly notable. Technically speaking, these swamps, half of them should be snow-covered swamps because Predict is starting to see some play in the format again. But I'm playing this deck list card for card as it was submitted to just kind of see how it feels as is. We have a light Urza Saga package. We have some cool things that we can do with the Dark Ritual. And between the Sudden Edicts in the main and some of the Snuff Outs in the sideboard, we have decent removal options. Our sideboard is not very expansive as we are using a whopping 8 slots for the Leyline of the Void plus Helm of Obedience combo, and if we have both of those at the same time, we're going to mill our opponent out. I don't think I have too much to say here. There's a bunch of neat cards that really don't see a lot of play in Legacy in this deck list, so I'm excited to see which one of them do perform well. Alright, grammar's a little rough today, folks. Hopefully the gameplay isn't. If you're new here and you like what you see, please consider subscribing. If you're regular, throw me a like before this video begins. It's the easiest way to support my content for free. Let's battle. I don't think my hands keep. I have a Dark Ritual. I technically have something to do with it, but Plague Engineer isn't that powerful in a vacuum. I don't have the mana to really effectively activate a Blast Zone. I'm going to probably deal 6 damage to myself. I don't think this is better than a mulligan. This hand is incredible in comparison, and we will toss back 1 Sudden Edict. Alright. Facing down a Chrome Mox. And this is almost certainly a Moon Stompy deck list. We actually don't want to get Blood Mooned, because that kills Urza Saga. Alright, Fable of the Mirrorbreaker is doable. I have a removal spell for that token. That's not bad. I just want to ritual that out. Put it on Goblin preemptively. And I can Sudden Edict that next turn. Or just drop a Bitterblossom if my position is okay. Alright, Plague Engineer on Goblin. My opponent can still convert that into a treasure token. Oh, no looting with Fable. Perfect hand over there. Eulalia. Both creatures coming in. So I will almost certainly go ahead and just block this creature, take it out of the way, and then I can Edict Lilia on my own terms. Alright, goodbye. Probably need to Edict at sorcery speed, because so Kenzan is a thing. Or no, I don't need to do that because Sudden Edict has split second. I want to play Bitterblossom. I'm thinking about this Urza Saga. If I want to play Bitterblossom or Opposition Agent, I just wait on the Saga. I think I'm fine waiting on the Saga as to not get blown out by Blood Moon. Thinking about this token, I think I will just go ahead and attack. I'll Edict my opponent. I don't know that my opponent would actively attack with Lilia into Plague Engineer. They might have really wanted the treasure last turn. My nightmare scenario here is my opponent playing Caves of Chaos Adventurer and then just having that to copy. I think I will lose on the spot to that. It is an unlicensed hearse instead. Oh, fantastic. I guess technically I should play the Urza's Saga and leave a black open instead. Then I'll Edict, take this out, and bash in for my 2. I'll eventually use Urza Saga to Pithing Needle Unlicensed Hearse, so I don't have to worry about that thing doming me for a gajillion. Misplay from my opponent. They did not exile cards from my graveyard. Womp womp. Yep. Goodbye, Urza Saga. Alright, that's fine. They did not actually remove any cards. I don't think my opponent knows how this deck works. Like, this might be a they have rented the deck situation and are trying it out for the first time. I think I just play Opposition Agent this turn cycle. And now I can play this without it costing me life. The upside of Bitterblossom is that it creates flyers, which are evasive for taking initiative back. The Spirit Guide is a Caves of Chaos Adventurer. I will respond to that with an Opposition Agent. This is kind of a big deal. I deny this extra land drop here. Rabblemaster, Spirit Guide. Everything else is pretty stock. 1 Sokenzan. I don't know that I need a picture of this for any reason. This is all pretty stock. 2 Warboss. Okay, yeah, I mean, you could have 2 more cards under here already. Trample's awkward for me here. I get to make a land drop. Rabblemaster makes blocking with this kind of weird. I think I'm going to offer my opponent Opposition Agent for Caves of Chaos Adventurer and see if they bite. I do not believe that they should, but they may have different thoughts about holding the initiative here. I wonder if I was incorrect to play my mountain because I could have put another swamp into play this turn. I don't think I would play double Bitterblossom out anyway, but now I don't have the option to, so that's a small mistake on my end. Alright. I have a swamp. I will play a Bitterblossom. I think 2 of them is just too much self-damage, though. That is a Chromox. For 2, right? Rabblemaster has gone under for hardcasting a Spirit Guide. I think this is a mistake from my opponent. So I'm about to trade Plague Engineer for Caves of Chaos Adventurer. My opponent could have an active Goblin Rabblemaster here that can actually start scaling up. And they have not ended up in that situation instead. Okay. So they're going to go ahead and go aggro on the Spirit Guide, which probably means that they hold the initiative for this turn cycle, which is good. My attack with this doesn't do me any good. I will cast this Grief just to put another creature into play. Opposition Agent staying alive is kind of a big deal for the purposes of Throne of the... Or no, this doesn't search, this reveals. Okay, take that back. Alright, so Hearse exiles 2 more things at end of turn. That's fine. I eat 5 damage here. Puts me on a very real clock from Bitterblossom. I'm at 8. Bitterblossom is so slow here. Alright, a new Goblin Rabblemaster is the top deck, which is quite good for my opponent. There is the crew. I can trade for one of these creatures if I would like. I need to attack and take initiative back. I kind of want to keep my grief. If I trade 2 bodies here, I take 4, go to 4, go to 3, don't block a big thing. That's maybe fine. Alright. I get my chump blocker for the next turn cycle. Bitterblossom's a pretty horrendous draw. I only want one of those in any one given game. Alright. My opponent takes a hit here. Grief hit plus trap is lethal. I think I'll just forge up the Fairy Rogue. Alright. We're down to the wire here. I'm at 3, but I'm effectively at 2. I kind of need to dodge my opponent having a card this turn that can crew Unlicensed Hearse. Note that I would be deterministically dead if my opponent hadn't missed an Unlicensed Hearse activation earlier in the game. Being at 2 lower life would mean that Bitterblossom would kill me on my upkeep. Alright. This is in theory fine. Both of those come in. Go ahead and take my block here. Go to 2. Opponent gets to draw a card. This has Menace, though, and is very unlikely to be answered. Opponent needs, like, Fury plus red card. There it is. That is very unfortunate, because my opponent did not have the mana for Fury, so they either just drew the Fury or the red card as their random draw. Alright, they will win for that. That is frustrating. GG. I don't want to Leyline Helm this opponent. Enough out Grief, and Turok are the things that I can reasonably consider playing. Bitterblossom is painfully slow. Pithing Needle is not particularly strong. Opposition Agent is medium. Maralen is probably a pipe dream here. Black is a little rough versus Blood Moon. I might still just need to keep the Bitterblossom and go down 2, but I can't really see a deck configuration where I truly have enough mana, or sorry, enough playables to cut the other Bitterblossom. Alright. I don't think this hand is good enough. This has the disappearing land problem, and I can't just like play removal spell into removal spell and actually go somewhere with this. This is not acceptable. I'll be keeping this 5-card hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just don't think I can keep either Chrome Mox reasonably here. I'm down so many cards already. This is super unfortunate. We're incredibly unlikely to win this game after a double mulligan there. Like, the situation in which we can win is a situation where my opponent wastes all their resources on lock pieces that don't matter instead of playing threats. I will just lose to something like a turn 1 Rabble Master. That gone under there. Oh, turn 1 Caves of Chaos Adventurer will do it too. That's fine. Yeah. We're down to that. I'm not realistically going to beat that. I don't have the acceleration for an opposition agent to take the initiative back. My opponent will be attacking for 7, then 7, and 5 off trap. And that's basically it already. I guess I'll take one more draw step, but assuming my opponent has any follow-up play, I'm just done. Just too much damage. Blood price of Ancient Tomb has been paid, been unpaid. Takesy backsies. Double takesy backsies. Alright. Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Finding a Blood Moon. Sure. I'm at 13. 4 mana. Is there just another one? Alice on 2. Sure. That stops Sudden Edict from being an out. Yeah, I'm effectively at 1 already. I'm comfortable conceding here with this as an out to most of my removal spells. YOLO? Imprint, Womp, Dark Ritual, Initiative. Alright, don't Force of Will me, basically, is where I'm at. Imprint, Womp, Dark Ritual, and Passageway Seer. Again, brutal Force of Will target here. Fuck you! No! Let me have fun with my tieflings. They are too cool to not resolve. I don't make the rules. There's a saga is going to come down faster than mine, and they're going to have more artifacts than I do. I'm at a huge disadvantage. Say la vie. Palace on 0. That turns on Metalcraft. It's Emery as well. Yeah, so now our Urza Saga is worse than our opponent's, and my opponent has a card draw engine, and I whiffed my draw. That is a bad sequence of events, and my opponent had the Force of Will. Right, no Bobble Crack. Oh, my opponent put Chalice on 0 to turn on Mox Opal, meaning they don't actually have a card advantage engine. Yeah, I might not be in as bad a shape as I thought, folks. You would like to float a mana, would you? It would be goddamn shame if something happened. Alright. Alright. My opponent lost to their own Chalice there. Huh. Huh. Do I want to Leyline Helm this opponent? I think so. Bitterblossom feels worse than what my opponent is doing with things like Psy. My opponent's not really going to kill many of my creatures to make Fiend Artisan better. I think I cut a lot of my toolboxy elements to play Leyline Helm as my primary win condition here. Does Blast Zone become Caracas? I could see that. That just randomly bounces Emery. And then I have to think about, like, Grief Turok stuff out. I'm essentially trying to play a control deck for a little while. I think I'm almost never searching up Retrofitter Foundry. I'm going to go ahead and cut that for an extra removal spell. I think I want another one of those in. Grief doesn't feel amazing. I'm not going to be the best at doing chip damage to my opponent, but again, I want to try to win with Helm. Not fully convinced that I have boarded properly here. This seems reasonable. I need more mana, but this is a fine start. Start with Leyline in play. If my opponent starts on an Emery-based hand, I'm in good shape. When they have, like, just a turn 2 Urza Saga that starts pooping giant constructs that I get scared, because I'm not going to try to Pithing Needle both those. I can't take Urza Saga with Thoughtseize, obviously. I guess I could just Pithing Needle that. Improvise Counterspell? Improvise Counterspell. Fine. Keep your secrets. Alright. I might end up in the awkward, mutually assured destruction of Pithing Needle on Urza Saga. Don't love that. Okay. I've got a real plan. So, attempt Pithing Needle. My opponent has to think about whether or not they want to crack Baubles here. I'm assuming that's what this pause is. That is Force of Will, pitching Kappa Cannoneer. Understood. I will play a map. My opponent's in an incredibly awkward position if they do not rip a land as their top card. Okay, so they're going to crack both Baubles in order to try and figure out... Sorry, in order to try to find a land drop. Draw your cards. Did you find the land? Nope. I believe I am fine with just finding... I guess I actually can be Castle Locthwain here, in case something goes wrong. Yeah. Just gives me a little bit of card draw for if something does go wrong. It's awkward for me if my opponent Pithing Needles Helm here. Considered playing my Urza Saga that turn to make it more likely that they would needle it. Ooh, okay, it's just an Opal. That's good. Shadow Spear's quite reasonable. This is a good amount of damage. I will eat 5. I think I continue not playing Urza Saga. I just have such good things to do with my mana. I think I play Sheoldred this turn, and Helm and activate in the same turn cycle next turn. This is an annoying enough card that it probably baits a Force of Will, if that's what my opponent has left. Oh, How does he know? How does he know? So we need to dodge like a pithing needle here, and we're mostly good. I guess it could also be the improvised counterspell. Okay, it's just new token, hit me for 6, leave me dead next turn. That's totally reasonable. Play Urza Saga. There's Helm. And I can't get Force of Willed here. And activate the old Helm. My opponent will concede. GG's. So, call me crazy, but I think I keep this one. I think I just Chrome Mox a Dauthi Voidwalker, play an Urza Saga on turn 1, and just play a double Urza Saga game from the get-go. It is unexciting. It is not sexy. I think it gets the job done. That's awkward. Okay, that's a great draw. That can let me just play Dauthi Voidwalker on turn 1 instead. I'm actually very happy with that draw. In case it's not immediately obvious why I was unhappy staring down Prismatic Ending there. If I play Urza Saga Chrome Mox on turn 1 and my opponent Prismatic Endings Chrome Mox, I lose out on so much Urza Saga value. Okay, no immediate Swords to Plowshares is nice. No, like, turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic or anything. Also nice. So now we'll go ahead and transition to the beatdown Urza Saga plan. I'm most scared if my opponent is playing an unfair combo deck, and this is like some show and tell variant. My opponent hasn't cast any spells in the first 2 turns, which makes me very nervous. I am reading that as a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. Second fetched land. Smells like show and tell to me. Ponder. No opposition agent there. That is a shuffle. Alright. I'm just gonna go ahead and continue to beat down. Opponent's at 12. Urza Saga will stack up damage fast. I fear death. Alright. Island. I assume my opponent is just tapping out. Oh? The Rhinos deck? Okay, it is show and tell. I think I just put in a new Urza Saga. Okay. I am about to Pithing Needle that. So I just need to Sudden Edict whatever creature my opponent puts in here. That is an Atraxa. I believe I let that resolve. Okay. That ain't great for me. Petal and Emrakul together are very rough. Not technically dead, though. Just sucks. Okay. Lotus Petal occurs. You may activate. I will give my opponent the chance to sacrifice their Emrakul. Nay, the privilege doing it. Oop. That's an Atraxa. Now an Emrakul is about to come in here. Oh, I'll go ahead and do this. Now, we have a Dauthi Voidwalker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I will eat 15 damage. Emrakul will get sacrificed. I will put it under Dauthi Voidwalker. Yup. Hey, would you look at that? Sacrifice. This spell cannot be countered by my opponent's Force of Will. And there we go. Green mean Eureka is in here too? Or is that for sideboard options? Baraka seems sweet. Baraka's probably playable. Snuff Out, probably not so much. Grief is fine. Helm just straight up as a card is probably playable. Do not want Plague Engineer. Am I cutting the cool part of the deck again? Is that just what's correct to do? Probably. I'm going to bring in like 11 cards. That probably means doing something like that. So there's 8. There's 9. Caracas and Blast Zone switch places. That's 61 right there. I keep Passageway Seer. I probably keep that and pitch one cheap artifact. Actually, Expedition Map finds Caracas. That's too good. Retrofitter Foundry or Shadow Spear probably goes. I don't think I want Mindbreak Trap. It's certainly playable, though. I have multiple Sudden Edicts and a Caracas. I probably can't throw this back. Not like I'm in love with this hand, though. A Grief. Probably do that immediately, pitching this land. See what's going on over there. Ooh. Library's so good here. F. I'll be taking the show and tell. Goodbye, Grief. I need to draw something that pressures my opponent's life total. That was always going to be true with this hand. I found a little extra disruption, which is nice. Caracas becomes a whole lot less good once Omniscience gets involved. Okay, yeah. So my opponent can choose to brainstorm this turn so that they can fetch some stuff away. Like they might not want the Omniscience right now, since I just took a show and tell. Okay, sure. We know some things that my opponent may have. I don't think I show Caracas. I think I hide that for as long as possible. Sure. Roll Taiga. Alright, there was a long think followed by a land drop. There is the library. That is going to give my opponent so very much value. Opposition agent, you are a little late. I'll take it, obviously. Like, it's a threat. It will do stuff. And it's possible I'm just supposed to sorcery speed the opposition agent so that my opponent can't draw Force of Will with his Sylvan library. Yep. At the same time, if I show the creature, my opponent is less likely. Yep. Now I do have this Caracas, which is worth something. There's a Force of Will. Pitching a show and tell. The opponent definitely had other options there. I'm going to play this untapped on the off chance that I feel the need to cast 2 Sudden Edicts. That doesn't usually happen. Oh, wow, my opponent took extra life there. Sure. Note, I have not dealt a single point of damage to my opponent. This is all fetch lands and Sylvan Libraries work. Okay, got some floating mana followed by a land drop. There is a sneak attack activation or an Emrakul. That will eat a Sudden Edict. Go ahead and let this mana empty. Edict you. And then this still just leaves this Caracas open to be safe. It's possible I'm supposed to just bounce it and force them to use the other red mana at sorcery speed. This answers that problem forever while I have the mana to safely do so. I'm going to dismiss Omniscience. Kind of feels like my opponent got rid of that. Especially after I see that Emrakul. Alright, my opponent sat there for a while thinking about doing something. I can just play out a Helm, but I'm shields down if I do that, and I think I need to keep shields up. I hate that my opponent just gets to select their best draws with Sylvan Library. Finding an Atraxa is so bad for me. Alright, there's a cantrip. Are we chilling? I'm happy if we're chilling. Opponent may just have Brainstorm locked themselves. What is the amount of mana at which I feel safe playing a Helm? I don't think it's 5. I think it's 6. And I think this is just a tapped land right now. So this whole Sylvan Library dance is going to keep happening. My opponent will get 1 card deeper than their Brainstorm from last turn. Or other Brainstorm, though. Okay, we're still just chilling. I am assuming that things are getting noticeably worse for me each turn. I think I just play that as a free turn clock. That still holds up a Sudden Edict. Oh, also, I think I missed a card draw opportunity last turn with Castle Locthwain. That matters. Okay, force pitching Omniscience, so the Omniscience was still around. And slight correction, the Turok would have been a 2-turn clock if I equipped Shadow Spear. Alright, we're chilling. Just 3 to activate. I think I have to keep holding up this Sudden Edict. I think Caracas alone is not enough when my opponent has multiple red mana sources. Battle's fine. I am okay with putting myself into the range of dying from one Emrakul hit. Cards are pretty valuable right now. Oof. Yes. That is a 2-turn clock. I would not be surprised to see a hard cast Force of Will since my opponent just played out a Lotus Petal. Yep, that's fine. Opponent opting not to go to 1 with Sylvan Library for some reason. Yeah, I would love to know how safe it is over here. What's going on? Sure. So, I wonder if my opponent had lines that would have left me dead if they just Veil of Summer, then activate this, I bounce, activate this, they kill me. Wonder if my opponent missed that. Well, I mean, they might not know that I have the edicts. Well, they figured it out now. Alright. Okay. I'm confused. Cool. I'll just keep drawing cards. Seems fine. Woo! 3, 6, 7 in hand. Not playing anything. I don't know what my opponent was doing casting that Veil if they weren't actually going off. Cantrip away, friend. Okay. That's a shuffle followed by a new land drop. This weird portion of a game is a stage where I would actually like to have something like Fiend Artisan in the deck. It would be pretty large right now, but this is an incredibly atypical game. That is another Force of Will pitching Echoing Truth. Sure. As of right now, my opponent decks first. They also time out first. Alright. Okay, things are happening. That's a Grizzlebrand. You can go to attacks. I don't need to use any resources to stop that here. I will just go ahead and bounce that. More land drops. I believe it is correct for me to just discard. Opponent's doing some stuff. Sure. Guard a Leyline. I'm going to move these cards to match up. Make the hand look pretty if we're going to stare at it for the next 16 minutes. Note, for people looking for situations where Atraxa is better than Grizzlebrand, this is a great example of one. Good God. Intuitioning. Playing a Brazen Borrower. That can resolve. I will just be sudden edicting that out of the way. My opponent could have used Grizzlebrand to protect... No. I have the Caracas. Never mind. I take it back. Sure. I don't really know if that needs to be played out. Seems like great brainstorm fodder. It's a 1-turn clock. I think I just discard a Helm this turn, though. Sure, that's fine. I just don't feel like I need to use this right now, while I still have Sudden Edict around. And Grief is just better to play than any one of these cards if I can just hardcast it by, like, drawing, say, a Dark Ritual. Okay. I don't think, again, you should necessarily be playing out all these lands. Brainstorm is a card that exists, unless all 4 Brainstorms have been used at this point. That's great. That's a theoretically lethal clock. I think I do go ahead and Grief pitching a Leyline now. See what's going on over there. Yeah, I'm fine if you Veil. Getting a Veil out of hand is totally a good use of a card. Goodbye, Grief. Oh, my opponent's doing something. Your second sneak attack resolves. End of turn. Attempt opposition agent. It is in play. Land drop. Okay. I win the match. I'm going to finish my thought. I believe here I am supposed to equip Shadow Spear before attacking in, so that my opponent cannot put in Simian Spirit Guide and survive the turn / kill opposition agent. That is a great example of knowing how you win and how you lose and playing to it. I think I was playing towards my outs really well and, like, playing towards the things that, like, not allowing the things that would let my opponent win happen. And I don't think my opponent was doing that. So my opponent ends this game with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lands plus Lotus Petal in play and a secondary sneak attack. if like two of those lands, or maybe like one land and a Lotus Petal and one land and a Sneak Attack weren't played out, like future Brainstorms are so juicy in that spot. So this hand has turn 1 Grief to protect Dark Ritual Opposition Agent. That is good, this hand is great. If that is not good, this hand is terrible. I've said that, I'm going to keep it. I don't know if this is a keep, but we're gonna try it. Thoughtseize. I don't think I'm doing that instead. I think I pitch an opposition agent here. Fiend Artisan is just castable off one more swamp as a draw. Oh. Sure. That's interesting. Oh, hella interesting. Now I can, like, Thoughtseize to see if Dark Ritual Opposition Agent actually will resolve. Or I can just Thoughtseize to protect it and make it stick. I think I YOLO it. Because the sooner this is in play, the higher impact that it has. So I think waiting the turn is just not productive here. So now that it's in play, we're looking to dodge, presumably just Lightning Bolt. There's unfortunately another just active volcanic island. All right, I will play around a fucking Snapcaster Mage here. Dark Ritual. Thoughtseize target you. Oh. These are not currently castable. I'm going to take the Brotherhood's End here, which is main decked, which is wild. All right. For the first time this league, and I think it's round 4 now, we are playing a Fiend Artisan instead of just sideboarding it out. Which I think was roughly my experience last time that I played Fiend Artisan in this mono black shell. I think it just got boarded out every time. Oh, my opponent found a playable card. Narset's not bad. It's going to die immediately in combat. Force is okay. Yeah. And I think we're just rumbling. Opposition agent kills Narset. This goes at my opponent. I have a Sudden Edict up. Really like my next draw to be a land. That would be clutch. Okay, that's down. Icefang Coatl still not a thing that I care about. Fiend Artisan, not exactly prime card right now. I've got my opponent on a 3-turn clock. So, like, it's not the end of the world. It's all quite awkward. Load of mana. Sure. That is a-okay with me. We're not going to get rid of opposition agent here. I just want to attack for the maximum amount of damage and leave my opponent dead next turn. Okay. It looks like we are playing against a bit of a brew, some sort of rug control deck list. Brotherhood's End makes me think that there's not really going to be Delver sort of stuff. Opponent may have Stifles, almost certainly have Uros. With Life from the Loam and Uro being things that are locked in, guess what it makes sense to do? It's that shit again. We probably go Ya or Ya as a starting point. It's a little trickier from here. I don't really want to 2-for-1 myself with Grief in that direction. That's out. I don't want Mindbreak Trap or Snuff out. Don't want this. I don't want this. There's some nice chip damage and technically some card advantage. I didn't see Dreadnoughts for sure. Seems like they're in there. This seems expendable. I cut Bitterblossom, the Fiend Artisans are worse. They may just naturally get good enough that it's okay. I need one more cut if I'm going to do this. I could go down a Thoughtseize pretty comfortably. Or I could just ignore attacking my opponent's hand and stay super threat dense. Doing something like this, ignoring Thoughtseize as an early play. Let's see how I feel about that. Not convinced that's right, but I'm out of time to think about it. This hand doesn't do anything. Makes land drops. That's all it does. I'm going to ship this. This hand attempts opposition agent nonsense. I will keep this. I have no idea what goes back. This is incredibly tough. I think I'm going to throw back Agadeem's Awakening and start the game with a Leyline in play. But it's possible Sudden Edict is supposed to go back, but I'm kind of expecting like this to be a Rogue Stifle Knot shell. And if that's the case, like I want to have access to Sudden Edict. I also can't really throw back Caracas, I don't think, because I'm really expecting my opponent to have access to like Minsc and Boo. Helm is cool. I think I don't try to Dark Ritual power that out. I just don't think that is likely enough to work. I'm just doing this now. I don't want to give my opponent another draw at a counterspell. Like if I telegraph it, did they just F6 their whole turn? Sure did. Cool. We take those. Yeah? Lightning Bolt you. You're at 16. Cool. Voidwalker is a nice pickup. Just makes going for Helm a little bit later stronger. Yep. Alright, we got another hit in. I am going to go ahead and play this out to keep pressure up on my opponent. It's possible that I just walk into a Brotherhood's End 2-for-1. That requires my opponent to both have Brotherhood's End and an untapped red source. I don't necessarily think is super likely. Like the Brotherhood's End itself is probably a one of. I think it's more important to better play around top decked 1-for-1 removal. Okay, great. Fury's very good. Pitching another Fury. This is a 2-for-2. Just a 2-for-2 that doesn't cost my opponent any mana, so it feels particularly good. My opponent ordered that poorly, I think. They should have done that in a way that left the... Or no, sorry, I have Leyline of the Void in play. It doesn't matter. JK. Well, I guess it does matter. No, it doesn't, because the Void counters aren't there. Alright. Okay. I'll take one. I'm at 19. I'm very healthy. Do I just play out Helm? I think so. I don't have anything else to use my mana on here. And it's not like Sudden Edict will trade for a counter spell if my opponent does have one. And they do. 2 of them, in fact. That's fine. Fetch land from my opponent. We can start getting into Minsc and Boo territory here. But it is not happening. They're just fetching around Opposition Agent, which is a-okay. Fiend Artisan is an okay top deck. It's a 3-3 right now, which is awkward because like it still dies to Lightning Bolt, but I'm in the position, I think, where I just have to play it out. 4 mana, end of turn. Are you Sharkin? Ayara on Leyline. Sure. That doesn't seem like a great use of resources to me. But I don't exactly know what all is going on over there. So I very much could be wrong. We'll see what my opponent's got. Now are we at Minsc and Boo? It's a Narset, sure. This is fine. I'll kill that in combat. Worth a Fog to my opponent. Oh, that's so awkward. I'm gonna go ahead and take out the Ice Fang right now. My mana is already spoken for next turn. Exactly what I was talking about. Alright. We'll drop the Leyline. So, like, my opponent got a couple cards in Graveyard as their thing from Otawara. And they weren't just dead to me top decking Helm. Have enough mana to Helm and activate in the same turn cycle. A Ponder. Sure. More land drops. Chromox among the worst draws in my deck here. I think every time that my opponent takes a draw step, their draw step on average is just better than mine. Alright, it's fetch and a new cantrip. Okay, my opponent took a very long ponder here and opted to go for the shuffle at the end of the day. Fiend Artisan is a great pickup for me. Now this is outside of Lightning Bolt. And it has resolved. It is a 2-turn clock on its own. I do have to think about whether or not I want to kill Narset. Narset currently doesn't do anything unless my opponent is actually playing some sort of Days Undoing card that is a draw 7, at which point Narset becomes incredibly scary. Alright, that's a Lightning Bolt. Means second lightning bolt is coming. Or Brotherhood's End? Brotherhood's End. Does that exile? No. Sure. That also answers the Narset problem for me, which is cool. Saga's great. Saga is absolutely what I am looking for. I will potentially play out this Chrome Mox next turn, even if I don't imprint anything on it, just to make my Urza Saga tokens a little bit larger. But I don't need to give away that information for free right now. Alright, cantrip again. That is a Minskin Boo. That is not a problem here. Caracas really helps to keep that in check. And for that we say, nope. Yeah, you can stifle that. And then that's worth exactly 4 points of damage. Doesn't matter a ton when I am at 18. Yep. That's insult to injury. So there's Pithing Needle. It will resolve. This one's Timeless Heroes. And we'll go ahead and play Chrome Mox as well. No imprint. I guess I don't have to do this now. I can do it now because of my opponent's last card randomly being another Stifle. But I think it's fine to wait. Alright, success. League has been an exceptional amount of patience on my end in terms of just kind of grinding these games out. So momentarily, these are about to be... Okay, my opponent has tossed in the towel. Urza Saga plus whatever else I do, be it Expedition Map or Retrofitter Foundry, is so much to overcome. GG's. This right here is just some good, honest, like, mono-black magic. Dark Ritual dude to dude into dude. Maybe into more dudes. I feel saucy. I can even save Dark Ritual until turn 2 and then play dude. But that doesn't goldfish as quickly. I don't know that I'll do that. Yavimaya. Sure. Another Agadeem's Awakening. I think I just played Dauthi Voidwalker ASAP here. Just get one of those going so the lands never go to the graveyard to potentially grow this. I'm not going to be great at fighting off a Merit Lodge on my own here. And my opponent can find one relatively quickly. I don't have any random bullshit that beats a Merit Lodge, right, that I can fetch. No. No, there's no random removal spell here. With a little bit more mana later, we can talk, but we're not there yet. Later on, we can start doing Fiend Artisan or Opposition Agent, but that just requires too much mana. Opponent goes to 17, and like there are some good things here. So my opponent had a Flagstones, and because it doesn't actually go to graveyard because of Dauthi Voidwalker's replacement effect, my opponent does not get their extra land that they normally would get. However, they can just have a Thespian Stage in hand, and I'm probably screwed. I have a 3-turn clock. Fuck. Alright, they're just going for it right now. And none of these things that are in exile are helpful to me. And they play around an Edict innately already. I need to Thoughtseize and find something that beats Merit Lodge. So let's try that. None of that will beat a Merit Lodge in 1 turn cycle for me. Knight does it in 2. I lose life here. I can't get above 20. Blah. Alright. We were pretty well set up that game in terms of, like, having a really strong hand, but we just did not out goldfish my opponent. My opponent's graveyard matters, which means, for I believe the 5th round in a row we're doing this, I like Snuff Out. Basically, cards that aren't named Mindbreak Trap are playable. Bitterblossom is interesting. I don't like you. Don't like you. I don't like you. Sheoldred feels far too slow despite having Death Touch. Blast Zone becomes Caracas again, I think. Leyline Helm in. That's still not. Okay. Fiend Artisan for Opposition Agent just feels too slow without any sort of like Gaia's Cradle sort of ramp or Ancient Tombs or anything. I think that gets cut here. Probably play Snuff Out. Gain some tempo. I don't love what that does to my curve. I think I drop Retrofitter Foundry. Very mana intensive and slow. How do I feel about Grief? Maybe want Grief on the draw. I might just want to straight up trim a 4-drop from my deck and just play one more creature. But once I cut this many creatures, it's like this card just isn't that good. Turok. Play a Turok. It's a 2-drop blocker for Knight of the Reliquary. And can do some cool stuff later. Okay, I've kept my opening hand here. I'm pretty good at interacting from a bunch of different angles here. Wish I could take the Wasteland. Probably Pithing Needle, Minsk, and Boo, so I don't take that. Wow, my opponent actually doesn't have green mana here. Might end up Pithing Needling Wasteland. Like, I can take Swords to Plowshares, Pithing Needle Wasteland. Try to drag this game to a halt. The issue with doing that, though, is that if my opponent finds their first green source, they cast Green Sun for Dryad Arbor, and then they get to 4 for Minsk and Boo. Wasteland is so good against me. I'm going to go ahead and take the Minsk and Boo so that I can Pithing Needle Wasteland. Relatively awkward for me. And maybe I'm being too much of a coward here. Oh, that's such a good draw. They're also going to discard that Wasteland, though, which is, like, super fucking awkward for me given what I just took. Okay. So you're going to cast first Green Sun for a Reclaimer, which I will snuff out on my turn. Oh, no, it's going for a Dryad Arbor. Are leaving up swords. That's fine. I'm presumably snuffing this out. Play this. Snuff out Dryad Arbor. I think I am not supposed to Pithing Needle right now. Like, I don't know what to name yet. Possible this ends up making my mana awkward because, like, I do have a lot of cool things. Okay. This is going to get a Reclaimer. Potentially just gets needled. It gets needled if I miss my land drop, which I just did. Blah. Like, this is still fine. Like, my opponent has a 1-2 in play. It could become a 3-4 if my opponent hits a fetch land. Or that happens, sure. It's a little awkward because Leyline was about to come down. Turok not looking great here. I am going to go ahead and cast it. I can cash it in for 3 life at some point. But I just need either a removal spell or some lands. Take the initial damage here. Outland Liberator. Not the best for me, honestly. Am I pitching Leyline here? Probably pitching Leyline here. Like, I need to worry about putting bodies into play more so than anything else. I know my opponent has Swords to Plowshares. I just eat this damage here. I'm at 5. Oof. I'll drop an end of turn opposition agent. My opponent will Swords on my turn. Probably. In play. Are you doing it now? Yes. Okay. Oh, do they also just have a lightning bolt? Oh no, they're going after my Chrome Mox. Sure. That's perfectly reasonable. That is a 2-for-1 in their favor. They can still... Okay, they're opting not to. Dark Ritual's interesting. I think I'm just using that to Dark Ritual Opposition Agent on their turn. Go for a triple block on one Reclaimer to kill it. Very awkward for me. Alright, crash on in. Dark Ritual. Opposition Agent. So I know my opponent has a spot removal spell, so I can't just do a block like this. It always results in me losing extra creatures. I have to do something like this. Which still doesn't feel good, because my opponent still gets to do 2 here, 1 here. and kill creatures, but I don't have a way to grow Turok by making my opponent discard cards right now or anything. Okay. Letting me keep the opposition agent. Fuck! Oh yeah, so it just didn't matter. When I had too many aggressive elements. Alright, GG. We end up with a 3-2 finish. Alright, that's it. We did it. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Today for me, I dropped an article on my Patreon that I called the Mono Black Dilemma that talks about some of the problems of like these Helm of Obedience, Leyline of the Void decks, and I feel like the stuff that I wrote in that article is very applicable here. Just super short version. When you play these decks and you dedicate 8 slots in your sideboard to this finisher, even if it's very good, you end up with a very slim sideboard for a lot of other matchups. And a lot of times it makes the core of your deck awkward in other ways. Like, this was a solid league, don't get me wrong, and we were relatively close to a 4-1 finish, I would say. Like, my matches went pretty well. But ultimately, I believe not once in the entire league did I activate a Fiend Artisan. And I certainly didn't assemble both Bitterblossom and Fiend Artisan at the same time. And so I think there was just a giant opportunity cost of having these cards in my deck. And with 20 lands, and like none of those are ancient tombs, I'm not really getting to the point where I just physically have enough mana in play to activate Fiend Artisan for large numbers to search up my like cool 4-drops or whatever. And this is especially true since some of our mana like Urza Saga and Dark Ritual is a single use. But at the same time, if we start going deep on ancient tombs, then all of these black or like certainly the black cards become worse. So if I were going to play this again, I'm not sure what I would do, because like this, and sorry, that Sudden Edict shouldn't be there. This 8-card package is not something that I'm sure is really worth it kind of as is. We never also assembled Opposition Agent plus this in this league either. So while the core of this deck is totally fine, like maybe you can just play some Fiend Artisans as a respectable 2-power threat and just play 5 other aggressive creatures to supplement it to make it more likely that your opponents use removal in the early game that grows Fiend Artisan. If you do that, you probably need to go down one of these Urza Saga targets to just also play another creature. But at the point where you start doing that, then some of these other one-ofs are also like not going to make sense. And the closer you start going towards being a lower to the ground aggro deck, you know, maybe with something like Gix as well, the less sense this makes. Didn't come up a lot in this league, but like we definitely are playing a decent number of legendary creatures that an opposing Karakas would be good against. I guess on that note, speaking of Karakas, I feel like that Karakas should be in the main deck. I feel like we boarded that in a lot. Like Blast Zone is a cool catch-all, and like I didn't mind having it in the deck despite sideboarding it out in a lot of rounds. But the idea of the game going to like roughly turn 4 or 5 to the point where you're doing your Urza Saga search, then you find Expedition Map, funnel 2 mana into it, get Blast Zone, have 3 more mana to activate Blast Zone and clear the thing. Maybe that's just too much of a pipe dream. The other sideboard cards that I had were reasonable, but again, I do have a pretty narrow range of things here. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please click the like button. It helps out a lot. If you're interested more, I do have an article on Patreon kind of talking about some of the deck building here. All right. Have a great rest of the day, folks. See ya.